This is the weekly roundup on the EAC News Channel. Your look back at the past week in the Kingdom of Wonder. A very good evening to you. I'm Paolo Bonini, and we start with Monday. Cambodian leaders have expressed their grief and condolences on the sudden death of Prince Norodom Ranariddh. Ranariddh has succumbed to his illness on Sunday morning in France. The news shocked the whole country, with both the people and the leaders expressing sorrow on the passing of the prince, the half-brother of King Norodom Sihamoni. EAC News reporter Ria Soka has the story.
Prime Minister Hun Sen immediately released a statement on Sunday, expressing condolences on the death of Prince Norodom Ranariddh. The Prime Minister and his wife Bunrani Hun Sen say that they are deeply saddened about the death of the prince, who was the chairman of Punsinpik, the royalist political party in Cambodia. Prime Minister Hun Sen says that they would like to share their condolences with the princess, the son, the daughter, and the royal family, describing the death of Prince Ranariddh as the loss of a great royal figure in the royal family who is patriotic, religious, and has the will of a king. The late Prince Norodom Ranariddh was a former Prime Minister of Cambodia. His royalist political party won elections in 1993, was ousted in 1997 coup by his coalition partner and rival, now Prime Minister Hun Sen. Prince Ranariddh's eldest son, Prince Norodom Chakravuth, has announced on Sunday evening that the remains of his father will be transported back home, although there is no date released yet as to when it will arrive in the Kingdom of Cambodia. Prince Norodom Chakravuth is now the acting president of Punsinpik. Another leader, president of the Cambodian Human Rights Committee, Keo Remy, has stated that he was shocked by the death of Prince Norodom Ranariddh and would have remembered many good memories with him. He has added that he was a descendant of the prince, remembering the times that he paid back his gratitude to Prince Ranariddh when he was in exile in 1997 and in 2008 before the election. He says Prince Norodom Ranariddh fled twice, from July 1997 to March 1998, in connection with the armed clashes between the CPP and Punsinpik, and from March 2007 to September 2008, in connection with the lawsuit profit from the sale of party headquarters to the French embassy. Prince Norodom Ranariddh was the first prime minister from 1993 to 1997 and was the Speaker of the National Assembly from 1998 to 2006. Rhea Soko, EAC News.
The new ambassador of the Czech Republic in Cambodia has pledged to work hard to encourage Czech investors to invest in Cambodia. The statement was made in response to a request made by the President of the National Assembly, Heng Samrin, to the Czech Republic to further promote cooperation between the two countries in the fields of trade, investment, and tourism in the post-pandemic context. EAC News reporter Dashana Gochan has them all.
The new ambassador of the Czech Republic in Cambodia, Martin Vavra, has paid a courtesy visit to the President of the National Assembly, Heng Samrin, on Monday morning. Heng Samrin welcomed and congratulated Martin Vavra for his new appointment by the Czech government as ambassador to the Kingdom of Cambodia. The National Assembly President says that Cambodia and the Czech Republic have been linked and cooperating with each other for a long time, a partnership which the two nations have always benefited from. He has also acknowledged that the Czech Republic has contributed greatly to the development of Cambodia and requested the ambassador to further promote trade, investment, and tourism in the present post-pandemic context. Ambassador Martin Vavra has agreed to the request and informed the President of the National Assembly that he will further study the promotion of trade cooperation between Cambodia and the Czech Republic, looking at examples of Czech companies investing in neighboring Southeast Asian countries, Thailand and Vietnam. The ambassador further highlighted that the Czech Republic has provided a lot of bilateral assistance to Cambodia in the areas of health and education, such as the recent provision of medical equipment to Takeo Provincial Hospital. He has stated that the Czech Republic will continue to provide humanitarian assistance and support to Cambodia, especially in the form of scholarships for students and Cambodian government officials who wish to study in Czech Republic. Heng Samrin has acknowledged the well-established education system of the Czech Republic, citing the example of King Norodom Sihamoni, who also studied there in his youth. He further stated that he believes the new diplomatic mission of the Czech Republic in Cambodia is very important and will continue to further enhance existing ties of friendship and cooperation between the two countries. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has received a courtesy visit from Lao Prime Minister Pancambi Panban at the Peace Palace on Monday. Prime Minister Hun Sen's personal assistant Iang Supalit says that Pancambi Panban has congratulated the Kingdom of Cambodia's development. He stresses that his current visit shows Cambodia is progressing, especially Phnom Penh. The Prime Minister of Laos also congratulated the Cambodian Prime Minister on his success in all fields, including the recent Asia-Europe meeting and the upcoming ASEAN chairmanship next year. In this regard, he has also expressed his support and promised to cooperate and help Cambodia to lead ASEAN success in the future. Prime Minister Vipanvan has mentioned that Cambodia and Laos have a long history of friendly relations on culture and traditions. He has also added that Cambodia and Laos may have changed, but the spirit of people to people remains the same. The Lao Prime Minister has made 8 requests to Prime Minister Hun Sen. First is to expand and strengthen cooperation with each other, to continue the exchange of visits between the two nations, and to promote the completion of previously agreed work. Second, continue to discuss and negotiate how to complete the cooperation agreement and the comprehensive partnership. Third, to continue the meeting through the existing mechanisms. Fourth, continue to urge the Joint Boundary Commission to continue working to achieve the goals achieved by the leadership. Fifth, to promote trade cooperation between the two countries. Sixth, to promote cooperation in the fields of education, culture and tourism, as well as other areas that are potential for both countries. 7. Promoting the private sector, the investment between the two countries and supporting investors between the two nations. And lastly, promoting cooperation in regional and international forums. In response, Prime Minister Hun Sen has thanked Prime Minister Pancambi Panban for supporting Cambodia as the chair of ASEAN and attending the ASEM meeting, supporting Cambodia as the previous ASEM chair, which made Cambodia successful. The Cambodian Prime Minister fully supported the 8 points raised by his Lao counterpart. In the field of tourism, the Prime Minister of Cambodia asked Prime Minister Vipanvan to consider allowing the two people to travel to each other, as this is mutually complementary sector. Prime Minister Hun Sen has also expressed support in the investment sector to encourage and support investments between the two countries, as investment is the basis for strengthening political cooperation. Prime Minister Hun Sen took the chance to inform Lao Prime Minister Pancambi Panban of Cambodia's assistance to Laos in the amount of $13 million, of which the $3 million comes from the royal government of Cambodia's budget and $10 million from philanthropists. The Kingdom of Cambodia has also provided with 500,000 doses of Sinovac vaccine and 2 vaccination vehicles to the Lao People's Democratic Republic. The Lao Prime Minister has also expressed his condolences to the death of Prince Norodom Ranariddh, to the royal family, and to the whole Kingdom of Cambodia.
The World Health Organization in Cambodia has warned against the possible surge of the Omicron variant of COVID-19. This new variant was first reported to the WHO in South Africa on November the 24th and is now being discovered in countries around the world. The WHO has labelled it a variant of concern after identifying a large number of mutations. Preliminary evidence also suggests that the variant could be more transmissible and pose increased risk of infection. EAC news reporter Darshana Gochan has the story.
The WHO in Cambodia has issued a statement regarding the new variant of concern, stating that there is a high risk that Omicron will be imported and soon found in the Cambodian community in this highly interconnected world. The WHO stresses that the Omicron variant has a large number of mutations, some of which are quite concerning, with early evidence suggesting that this particular variant of concern could be more easily transmissible and also pose an increased risk of reinfection. On a positive note, the WHO stated that PCR diagnostics continue to be effective in detecting the Omicron variant, ensuring that its spread can be efficiently tracked. However, they still emphasize the need for caution and vigilance among citizens. WHO representative to Cambodia, Dr. Lee Ailan, has stated that Cambodia should be concerned about the newly detected variant of concern, Omicron, despite the high COVID-19 vaccination coverage. She further added that everyone should be ready for a possible surge and we should continue to learn and adjust our response measures. In response to the growing global alarm over the new variant, the Cambodian Ministry of Health has said that they do not yet plan to ban entry of flights from certain African or European countries where the Omicron variant has been detected. Ministry of Health spokesperson Au Van Dien has stated that Cambodia has now entered the new normal, and this must be maintained for the sake of stability. She has stated that since the country has opened up, there are no plans to suddenly close again. Instead, Au Van Dien has stated that more attention will be paid to the entry and movement of people from countries of concern, including conducting COVID-19 tests on arrival and isolating positive cases in treatment centers. Darshana Gauchen, EAC News.
The Kingdom of Cambodia has received more than 188,000 doses of the Moderna vaccine on Sunday. The donations were given through the COVAX facility program. This is the first time Cambodia has received the Moderna brand, enabling Cambodia to diversify its vaccine portfolio. EAC News reporter Yuri Matosko has the details.
Around 6 p.m. on Sunday, at the Phnom Penh International Health Ministry Secretary of State Yuk Sanbat received the donations, along with the World Health Organization representative to Cambodia, Dr. Lee Ailan, and UNICEF representative to Cambodia, Farul Foyozet. The COVAX facility is an initiative promoted by the World Health Organization in partnership with international development organizations to provide vaccines for poor or developing countries. Cambodia has already received 3 million doses of vaccines through the COVAX facility program. As the largest single vaccine buyer in the world, UNICEF is the leading procurement and supply agency for COVAX. UNICEF representative to Cambodia, Farul Foyozet, has stated that through the COVAX facility, Cambodia has received about 60% of the scheduled total doses of vaccines. It is expected that by the end of this year, the AstraZeneca and Sinovac vaccines will be available in the kingdom. According to the Health Ministry Secretary of State Yuk Sanbat, the newly arrived Moderna vaccines will be taken to a warehouse before being distributed to areas where lacks vaccination to people that are still not inoculated. As of Monday, Cambodia has already received 40 million vaccines, 30 million of them as purchases and donations from the People's Republic of China. Yuri Matosko, EAC News.
The Ministry of Social Affairs, Veterans and Youth Rehabilitation has kicked off a workshop improving accessibility for persons with disabilities on Monday. The workshop, titled Technical Standards, Physical Accessibilities, Facilitations for Persons with Disabilities, aims to support persons with disabilities, providing them with more inclusive and accessible infrastructures across the kingdom. EAC News reporter Darshana Gauchen has the details.
Ministry of Social Affairs, Veterans and Youth Rehabilitation, led by its Secretary of State, M. Chan Makara, on behalf of Minister Vong Saut, has conducted the workshop on Monday aiming to improve infrastructures to be more inclusive and accessible for persons with disabilities in Cambodia. M. Chan Makara has commended the cooperative efforts of the leadership and civil servants of the General Secretariat of the Disability Action Council and other relevant partners organizing the activity, in collaboration with the Australia-Cambodia Cooperation for Equitable Sustainable Services Program and Handicap International. He says that the Ministry of Social Affairs and the Ministry of Land Management, Urban Planning, and Construction, through the General Secretariat of the Disability Action Council, have prepared an interministerial proclamation dated 28 November 2018 on the technical standards, physical accessibility, facilitation for persons with disabilities, which was officially launched on 18 September 2019. Making a new development in the disability sector in the Kingdom of Cambodia. He says the interministerial declaration is very important for both the construction sector and the disability sector in the country. Mosfe's Secretary of State M. Chan Makara has recalled that in the past, the Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Land Management, Ministry of Cults and Religions, and the Ministry of Tourism have also issued guidelines to units and locations under their jurisdiction to include provisions for persons with disabilities in the construction of both old and new public infrastructure, such as subnational administration buildings, religious sites, and tourist sites. He has outlined obstacles that persons with disabilities face in relation to physical infrastructure that are not accessible or convenient for them. He particularly pointed out the buildings or places where people go to receive public services, such as district or city halls, schools, hospitals, religious buildings, hotels, restaurants, public bathrooms, parks, entertainment centers like cinemas, and other publicly accessible buildings are often not accessible to persons with disabilities when they should be built for everyone to access. He says that it is a positive thing that the Prime Minister has declared persons with disabilities, the elderly, and students do not need to pay for bus transport services, but persons with disabilities still face obstacles due to the bus stations not being properly organized and these infrastructures not being built with accessibility in mind. He has encouraged all relevant parties must work together to eliminate barriers for persons with disabilities, proposing a list of considerations for the different ministries to undertake in the effort to build more accessibility-centered infrastructures in Cambodia. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
The National Museum of Cambodia is a remarkable place that secures history and instills pride for the kingdom, being the biggest museum in Cambodia. However, the museum had to close for months amid the spread of COVID-19, separating the Millennium statues from its people. But since the 30th of October, the National Museum of Cambodia has finally opened its doors. EAC News reporter Yuri Matosko sat down with the director of the National Museum, Chai Fisot, who kindly told of the changes and repairs the museum is facing for an enhanced experience for the public.
In 1917, the Governor-General of French Protectorate of Indochina, in which Cambodia used to be part, appointed Georges Groslier to conduct a study on the state of Cambodian arts. Georges Groslier was a painter, historian, and curator, born and raised in Cambodia, becoming the responsible to design a museum completely based on Khmer culture and history. A foundation stone to build the museum was laid on August 1917, finishing its construction in April of 1920. The museum itself had experienced all the contemporary events of Cambodia, from Cambodian independence in 1953 to the Civil War under the Khmer Rouge authoritarian regime, in which the museum had to close between 1975 to 1979. Just as the museum was about to complete its 100-year anniversary in 2020, the museum had to close its doors once again, this time for safe precautions amid the rise of COVID-19 pandemic. More than a year after, the royal government's successful vaccination campaign has given the kingdom the opportunity to enter in its new phase of normality. In the 30th of October onwards, the National Museum has finally been allowed to thrive once again as the most important museum of Cambodia. It houses one of the world's greatest collections of Khmer culture material, including sculpture, ceramics, and ethnographic objects from the prehistoric, pre-Angkorian, Angkorian, and post-Angkorian periods. EAC News had the opportunity to interview the director of National Museum, Chai Fisot. Fisot says that although the closure of the National Museum had distanced the public from its exhibition, it gave more time for essential repairs at the building.
During the closing, we have great benefits from this in terms of spending time for the conservation and restoration of the building. And particularly, we are concerning about the restoration and repainting our galleries and reorganizing the position of the statues and other stuff related to improving the physical appearance of the National Museum. I think, that is a great achievement that we have done in order to be ready, not completely 100% ready for reopening, but at least after the government announce or allow us to reopen, most of the part that we are prepared has been done, except for the restoration of the roof. For us, during this reopening, we are very pleased to welcome the visitor, but in the way that we need to follow the guidelines of the SOPs standardization that requested by the Ministry of Health. So we follow these guidelines, and we have to be sure that we offer the safe environment or safe condition for the local and international visitors.
The director has also given an insight about how the statues were reorganized for the museum's reopening. He believes that new and refreshing contents might attract new visitors.
When they come back, they hope to see something a little bit new or completely new. It depends on, for example, we have a new contemporary exhibition that is very new. And then for us, at the moment, I try my best in order to reorganize some position of the statue in pre-Angkorian gallery and Angkorian gallery. These two gallery completely rearranged for the position of some statues. And then I try my best to give the context to the visitors through the themes of religious or through the themes of the iconographies of the statues. It depends on the context. For example, we are thinking about rearranging in terms of space and in terms of the chronologies of the art, because the way that we are displaying through the art chronology, let's say a pre-Angkorian, Angkorian, or post-Angkorian, something like that. So we go through that. I still follow that ways, but try to give themes to highlight it. And I'm thinking about giving space for visitor, and some part I reduce the number of the statue, and then I try to bring an important statue that we are displaying outside of the main gallery and bring it back to the gallery. Sometimes some statue, I need to bring it out, so we rearrange it. But sometimes it's very difficult for me while we are rearranging, especially for the early periods of the Angkorian period, because it's very compact. It's very more statues in this particular periods, 4 or 5 style are combining together, but not chronologically, jump out. That is the most difficulty. I cannot deal completely the issue of this in order to give the picture or to let the visitor easy to understand about that statue, because it jumped from, let's say, Kulen, Preko, and then jump to Koke, and then back to Pantesrei or something like that. So it not go step by step or period by period.
Chai Visot says the balance of the space and the number of statues are a challenge. According to him, there are 20,000 statues being conserved at the museum, in the main galleries, adjacent areas, and in the special storage. He has also shared with EAC News the museum is working hard to improve the lights and the signboards for each statue.
You can see the way that I try to change is equip the light system, because I think this is very important. We cannot use the natural sunlight in order to capture or to showcase a statue, especially the masterpieces, because sunlight is not stable, especially during the rainy season. It can be dark or more light, and that's why we need a sustainable, a light system that showcase each statue. This attract me the most, because the feeling when we send our statue abroad, and then they put in their galleries, and they use the light system, it seems to be the same object, it would be more, how can I say, attraction than the statue that we are displaying in our gallery because of the light system. This is very important.
The director of the National Museum is confident that in the future, young generations will be more involved in arts.
I have known that one big project that funded by the Japanese government in order to introduce art into the public school. This is the big wave for younger generation of Cambodian started to love art. I know in the past, we have art, we have handicraft work, activity, but not completely focused to art, painting, drawing, or something like that. Not really strongly push younger Cambodian students to love art. It completely different from private school, especially for international school. They have the curriculum of art in their curriculum. That's why I'm very happy that I can see the publication of the book that will be introduced to the public school in the near future soon. This is what I can see, that the context of art would be absorbed into the level of the public school to the younger generation of the public student of the public school.
The National Museum of Cambodia opens from 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. The tickets stop selling at 4:30 p.m., costing 500 rials for Cambodian. For international tourists aging 18 years old and up, the tickets are costing $10 and $5 for international tourists from the age 10 to 17 years old. Tour guides can be arranged in English, Khmer, French, and Japanese at the museum's main entrance. Yuri Matosco, EAC News, the National Museum of Cambodia, Phnom Penh.
Several countries around the globe have already reported confirmed cases of the COVID-19 Omicron variant. This has led to some travel restrictions fueled by fears that the variant may create another surge of more serious COVID-19 cases. The South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has announced on Sunday that he is deeply disappointed by the decision of Western countries prohibiting travel from a number of South African countries, following their earlier discovery of the COVID-19 Omicron variant.
South African officials are furious about a British ban on flights from Southern African countries, on which several other countries followed suit. Many South Africans feel they are being punished for their transparency and hard work in keeping tabs on the way the virus is mutating, which started in Gauteng. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa says it is completely unjustified departure from the commitment that many of these countries made at the meeting of the G20 countries in Rome last month. He says the action is unfairly discriminating against South Africa, and the prohibition of travel will not be effective in preventing the spread of this Omicron variant. He has added that the only thing the prohibition on travel will do is to further damage the economies of the affected countries and undermine their ability to respond to and also to recover from the pandemic. Scientists have so far detected the new Omicron variant in relatively small numbers, mainly in South Africa, but they are concerned by its high number of mutations, which raised concerns that it could be more vaccine-resistant and transmissible. The Omicron variant of COVID-19, which has a large number of mutations with worrying characteristics, has so far been detected or suspected in multiple countries around the world, including the UK, Germany, Australia, Denmark, and the first case in Europe was reported in Belgium on Friday, then in Egypt. The Omicron variant, or the B11529, was first reported to the World Health Organization by South Africa on 24 November, and the first known confirmed B11529 infection was from a specimen collected on 9 November. Following worrying initial studies, the WHO on Friday classified the new COVID-19 strain as a variant of concern, naming it the Omicron variant during an emergency meeting. A day later, British Health Secretary Sajid Javid has confirmed 2 cases of the Omicron coronavirus variant have been detected in Britain, in Chelmsford and Nottingham, To curb the spread, 4 more countries were added to Britain's travel red list on Sunday: Angola, Mozambique, Malawi, and Zambia. The British government has previously added South Africa, Botswana, Lesotho, Eswatini, Zimbabwe, and Namibia to the country's travel red list. On Saturday, Germany reported its first 2 confirmed cases of the Omicron variant found in southern state of Bavaria. Moreover, 50 passengers from Cape Town who arrived on Friday are now under quarantine in Bavaria, with 2 of them having tested positive for the coronavirus. It remains unclear whether it is the Omicron variant, and investigation is now underway. On 27 November, Italy has also reported it detected its first case of Omicron on a traveler that recently returned from Mozambique. Dutch health authorities have confirmed that 13 cases of the new Omicron coronavirus variant have been found in the Netherlands among passengers that were on 2 flights from South Africa that arrived on Friday. Meanwhile, the Australian government fears that the Omicron strain might have reached Sydney. Of the 14 travelers that just landed in the country a day ago, 2 have been tested positive upon arrival. Canada is also closing its borders to foreign travelers who have recently been to 7 Southern African nations: South Africa, Namibia, Lesotho, Botswana, Eswatini, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique. U.S. also imposes travel ban from 8 African countries over Omicron variant, even no cases identified so far.
Ousted Myanmar leader Aung San Suu Kyi has braced herself for a verdict in her incitement trial against the country's military rulers, the first in a catalogue of cases that could see her jailed for the rest of her life. The democratically elected leader faces years in jail if she is found guilty of charges that also include corruption, fraud, and breaking COVID rules. A court in Myanmar is expected to deliver a verdict on ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi on Tuesday. The verdict will be the first in Suu Kyi's trial. She is facing 11 criminal cases with maximum sentences that total more than a century in jail. Those include corruption and violating the Official Secrets Act. Suu Kyi's court hearings are being conducted behind closed doors, and defense lawyers, the only source of information on the proceedings, are imposed with gag orders by the authorities. The Nobel laureate has been detained since the generals ousted her democratically elected government on the 1st of February. More than 1,200 people have been killed and over 10,000 arrested in a crackdown on dissidents. According to a local monitoring group, Aung San Suu Kyi faces 3 years in jail if found guilty of incitement against the military. The charge is one of several these analysts say are aimed at removing the high-profile figure from the political arena for good. The court has been hearing testimony related to the charges of incitement, which is sometimes referred to as sedition. The offence is defined as spreading false or inflammatory information that could disturb public order. But the junta's plans for Aung San Suu Kyi remain unknown. They add, and the authorities could also delay the verdict. Journalists have been barred from proceedings in the special court in the military-built capital, and her lawyers are banned from speaking to the media. Now for a look at the news making international headlines this Monday, 29th of November.
A 7.5 magnitude earthquake has shaken the remote Amazon region of northern Peru on Sunday and was felt as far as Lima in the center of the country. It has destroyed 75 homes but with no deaths reported but leaving structural damage. The Seismological Center of the Geophysical Institute of Peru has reported that the earthquake has a depth of 131 kilometers and that the epicenter was 98 kilometers from the town of Santa Maria de Nieva in the province of Condor Canque. The quake was felt throughout the central and northern Peru. Some residents left their homes as a precaution. Part of the church tower on Halca Grande, which is considered as national heritage, has collapsed. Peruvian President Pedro Castillo Terrones has checked the damage caused by the quake. Castillo visited the town of Halca Grande in the Amazonas region to show his support to those affected by the dramatic quake. The president has vowed and reassured the victims that the government is prepared to provide help. He has also said that those affected would receive aid to rebuild their homes.
Ukrainian soldiers say they're ready for possible Russian offensive. The army soldier says they don't count on Europe's help. The military trusts and can count on US support. Ukraine believes in the promise the United States gave them, and the country already gave them a large consignment of US ammunition and Javelin missiles and mortars. Turkey gave them attack drones. He has mentioned that there will be more help. There is help as these countries have a common enemy. Ukraine force says they are not afraid. It's just a war. Fear is just a thing. It's a bad idea to be afraid when someone comes to your house and you hide in your basement. It won't work. One should get up and go to fight. It's a luck of a draw. Ukraine's military is confident that they have the ability and is ready to repel any attacks. Ukraine's military intelligence said last week that Russia have more than 92,000 troops have massed around Ukraine's borders and was preparing for an attack by the end of January or beginning of February. Moscow dismisses it as false and alarmist. Ukraine, which wants to join the NATO military alliance, has also blamed Moscow for supporting separatists in a conflict in its east since 2014. Russia has claimed it suspects Ukraine of wanting to recapture separatist-controlled territory by force, but President Volodymyr Zelensky has declared on Friday Kiev had no such plans, and Russia's rhetoric opposing Ukraine's bid to join NATO was a worrying signal. Ukraine's force-controlled borders aren't fully prepared for any escalation. The president says in case of an attack, they have means for defense, and they are fully prepared.
Italian scientists from Bambino Gesù Pediatric Hospital in Rome have published on Saturday the world's first photo of the newly identified Omicron coronavirus variant. The image in the photo shows the Omicron variant has more mutations in spike protein, the region that interacts with human cells prior to cell entry, compared with the highly infectious Delta variant. Scientists have claimed that the findings do not directly suggest the mutations are more dangerous. On Friday, the World Health Organization has declared Omicron as a new variant of concern of COVID-19. The B11529 variant, codenamed by the WHO, was first sequenced in Gauteng, South Africa on November 24, which causes nations on alert. Several cases were spotted in Europe, and governments around the world have announced travel restrictions targeting the Southern African region where it first emerged, prompting criticism that the continent was yet again bearing the brunt of panic policies from Western countries.
Cambodian King Norodom Sihamoni received a courtesy visit from the Lao Prime Minister, Phongkham Pavan, on Tuesday. He has visited the king prior to his departure from the kingdom to return home. Prime Minister Phongkham Pavan has expressed condolences to the royal family, especially to the king, over the death of his brother, Prince Norodom Ranrith, on Sunday in France. The Lao Prime Minister, Phongkham Pavan, arrived in Cambodia on Monday at the invitation of Prime Minister Hun Sen. Making sure that the visit would be successful, Prime Minister Phongkham Pavan has visited senior government leaders, but primarily King Norodom Sihamoni. He has also laid a wreath at the Independence Monument, paying his respects to the late king, Father Norodom Sihanouk. It is believed that the visit of the Lao delegation to Cambodia, headed by its Prime Minister, is a way to further strengthen long-standing relationships and friendships between the two nations. Senate President Sai Chum has received a courtesy visit from the Lao Prime Minister, Phongkham Pavan, on Tuesday. The visit was to enhance and establish stronger relations between leaders in Cambodia and Laos. The official visit of the Lao Prime Minister is to strengthen the bond, solidarity and brotherhood between the neighbouring countries, as well as promoting the cooperation within the ASEAN framework for peace, stability and prosperity in the regional and international levels. Senate President Sai Chum has congratulated Laos on its development from being a low-income country to a middle-income country. They have also discussed Cambodia-Vietnam-Lao triangle area and have prepared to set up a Cambodian-Lao border post next year. Phongkham Pavan is a new Prime Minister of Laos, elected by the Lao National Assembly in March 2021. He was previously Vice President of Laos, Minister of Education of Laos and President of Lao-Vietnam Friendship Association. Lao Prime Minister Phongkham Pavan has paid a courtesy visit to the Cambodian National Assembly President, Heng Samrin, on Tuesday morning. His visit to Heng Samrin is one of his scheduled activities in the Kingdom of Cambodia. The Lao Prime Minister is leading a high delegation visiting Cambodian officials to strengthen the cooperation between the two nations. EAC News reporter Ria Soka has the story.
National Assembly President Heng Samrin has warmly welcomed the Lao delegation led by their Prime Minister Phongkham Phanvan. During his 2 days of visit in the kingdom, the Lao Prime Minister has noticed a huge development in the Kingdom of Cambodia. He has told the Cambodian National Assembly President that Cambodia has prospered, especially its capital, Phnom Penh. Prime Minister Phongkham Phanvan has congratulated Cambodia for its active participation and success in international forums such as the 11th Asia-Europe Parliamentary Partnership Meeting and the 13th Asia-Europe Summit. He says that the international events organized and hosted by Cambodia has shown the prestige of Cambodia in the international stage. On his side, the National Assembly President Heng Samrin has applauded the achievements of the strong friendship and cooperation between Cambodia and Laos in the past within the framework of the party, state, government, and National Assembly. He has emphasized that the current visit of Lao Prime Minister Phongkham Phanvan marked the resumption of exchanges between the leaders of the two countries to further promote friendly relations, traditional solidarity, and cooperation in all fields. The two government leaders have pledged to work hard together and to resolve the remaining border issues to achieve peace, development, and brotherhood. The Lao Prime Minister has stressed that Cambodian officials can visit Laos at any time of their convenience. Reyes Soko, EAC News. Prime Minister Hun Sen has received a courtesy visit from Lao Prime Minister Phongkham Phanvan at the Peace Palace on Monday. Prime Minister Hun Sen's personal assistant Ieng Supalit says that Phongkham Phanvan has congratulated the Kingdom of Cambodia's development. He stresses that his current visit shows Cambodia is progressing, especially Phnom Penh. The Prime Minister of Laos also congratulated the Cambodian Prime Minister on his success in all fields, including the recent Asia-Europe meeting and the upcoming ASEAN chairmanship next year. In this regard, he has also expressed his support and promised to cooperate and help Cambodia to lead ASEAN success in the future. Prime Minister Phanvan has mentioned that Cambodia and Laos have a long history of friendly relations on culture and the traditions. He has also added that Cambodia and Laos may have changed, but the spirit of people to people remains the same. The Lao Prime Minister has made 8 requests to Prime Minister Hun Sen. First is to expand and strengthen cooperation with each other, to continue the exchange of visits between the two nations, and to promote the completion of previously agreed work. Second, continue to discuss and negotiate how to complete the cooperation agreement and the comprehensive partnership. Third, to continue the meeting through the existing mechanisms. Fourth, continue to urge the Joint Boundary Commission to continue working to achieve the goals achieved by the leadership. Fifth, to promote trade cooperation between the two countries. Sixth, to promote cooperation in the fields of education, culture and tourism, as well as other areas that are potential for both countries. Seventh, promoting the private sector, the investment between the two countries and supporting investors between the two nations. And lastly, promoting cooperation in regional and international forums. In response, Prime Minister Hun Sen has thanked Prime Minister Pankambi Panvan for supporting Cambodia as the chair of ASEAN and attending the ASEM meeting, supporting Cambodia as the previous ASEM chair, which made Cambodia successful. The Cambodian Prime Minister fully supported the 8 points raised by his Lao counterpart. In the field of tourism, the Prime Minister of Cambodia asked Prime Minister Vipanvan to consider allowing the two people to travel to each other, as this is mutually complementary sector. Prime Minister Hun Sen has also expressed support in the investment sector to encourage and support investments between the two countries, as investment is the basis for strengthening political cooperation. Prime Minister Hun Sen took the chance to inform Lao Prime Minister Pankambi Panvan of Cambodia's assistance to Laos in the amount of $13 million, of which the $3 million comes from the royal government of Cambodia's budget and $10 million from philanthropists. The Kingdom of Cambodia is also provided with 500,000 doses of Sinovac vaccine and 2 vaccination vehicles to the Lao People's Democratic Republic. The Lao Prime Minister has also expressed his condolences to the death of Prince Norodom Ranariddh, to the royal family, and to the whole Kingdom of Cambodia.
Tuesday marks the 5th anniversary of the inclusion of Cambodia's Chape Dong Veng in the World Heritage List. The Chape Dong Veng is a Cambodian 2-stringed long-neck guitar, and it was subscribed into UNESCO's Intangible Cultural Heritage List on the 30th of November 2016. Marking the occasion, Prime Minister Hun Sen has also called on all Cambodian children to love and protect their precious national heritage. EAC news reporter Dishana Gochan has more details.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has made a Facebook post congratulating Cambodia on the 5th anniversary of the inclusion of the Chapai Dong Veng into the UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage List in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia in 2016. He says that this priceless heritage property of the Kingdom of Cambodia has been preserved for a long time, and he urges all Cambodian children to love and participate in protecting the precious heritage of their nation and the whole world. The Chapai Dong Veng is one of Cambodia's oldest musical instruments, which can be even found in carvings on the walls of Angkor Wat. The 2-stringed plucked instrument is played to accompany songs which are usually about ancient folk tales or short educational stories about virtue and culture. On Sunday, the Ministry of Culture and Fine Arts held an event to celebrate the 3rd anniversary of the inclusion of the Cambodian Puppet Theater as an intangible cultural heritage, and to also celebrate all other heritage properties from Cambodia, which have thus been recognized. The Chapai Dong Veng and the Cambodian Puppet Theater are just 2 of 8 Cambodian heritage sites and properties that have been registered into different World Heritage Lists. Others include Angkor Wat, the Royal Ballet of Cambodia, Preah Vihear Temple, tugging rituals and games, Sambo Prey Kuk Temple, and Sabai Thom Khmer Shadow Theater. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
The Omicron virus is a new variant, designated by the WHO as a variant of concern. On Monday night, Cambodia has taken the decision to impose a temporary ban on passengers traveling or transitioning through 10 African countries. The Ministry of Health says it's a precaution, as several other countries in the world have already recorded COVID-19 cases with the Omicron variant. EAC News reporter Yuri Matosko has the story.
Following countries such as USA, Canada, Brazil, Great Britain, the European Union, Saudi Arabia, Japan, Russia, and Australia, Cambodia will also ban travels from travelers coming from 10 African countries. The measures will be on effect 48 hours after the announcement, which was made public on Monday night by the Ministry of Health. The countries in which travelers are temporarily banned from entering Cambodia are Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho, Mozambique, Namibia, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Malawi, Angola, and Zambia. The ban also includes all travelers who have just passed through those 10 African countries in the past 3 weeks. Epidemiologists are still figuring out how transmissible is the new Omicron variant, but what is known is that 30 out of its 50 mutations are on the protein spike, which is the exposed part of the virus that binds with the human cells. The Cambodian's Ministry of Health is stressing its remarks to strict apply health safety rules, especially the 3 do's and 3 don'ts, apart from the urgent necessity of all of its citizens to be vaccinated against COVID-19.
Six airlines have applied to resume flights to and from Cambodia, starting in December. These include airlines from Thailand, the Philippines, and Hong Kong, as Cambodia continues to open up the country after gaining control of the national COVID-19 situation. The State Secretariat of Civil Aviation expects that the total number of flights will increase to up to 43 flights a week by December. EAC News reporter Jashana Gochan has the story.
6 airlines, including Thai Smile Airways, Bangkok Airways, Thai Air Asia, Philippines Airline, and Cathay Pacific Airways, flying in and out of Thailand, Philippines, and Hong Kong, have applied to resume their flights with Cambodia. Additionally, Singapore Airlines, which already operates outbound flights to Cambodia, has now requested to operate an additional 14 flights a week, including an extra 7 flights a week at Siem Reap International Airport. The local Lanmei Airlines also plans to operate flights between Phnom Penh, Siem Reap, and Bangkok at least 2 times per week. According to the spokesman and Undersecretary of State for Civil Aviation, Sin Chansarivotha, it is estimated that there will be at least 43 flights a week in December, following the opening up of the country. This is a 16% increase in flights from October, which saw an average of 37 flights a week. Sin Chansarivotha has also been urging the resumption of flights from the Middle East to Cambodia, with airlines such as Emirates, Qatar Airways, and Etihad Airways. He has also been organizing the rescheduling of flights from All Nippon Airways in Tokyo. He has added that the number of flights may vary depending on the evolution of the actual situation of control of the COVID-19 epidemic. Cambodia has stopped requiring quarantine for all travelers who have been vaccinated against COVID-19 2 weeks ago. This is in accordance with the government's decision to reopen the economy, especially the tourism sector. More flights in and out of Cambodia will mean a faster recovery for an economy that has been decimated by the pandemic for more than a year. Darshana Gochan, EAC News, Phnom Penh International Airport.
Phnom Penh Capital Administration has announced the reopening of cave TV, clubs, and other entertainment businesses in the capital. The announcement came on Tuesday, just hours after the administration released an announcement to extend the restrictions for a week. EAC News reporter Yuri Matosko has the details.
A change in the capital's decision. Following Monday night's decision of 1-week extension of the restriction, Phnom Penh Capital Administration has announced that it has decided to reopen the high-risk business starting on Tuesday. The announcement says location owners or business owners of karaoke bars and discos need to be assigned staff in front of the entrance to inspect the vaccination card in accordance with the instruction of the Phnom Penh Capital Administration and must always adhere to the 3 protection measures. The business should also be in strict accordance with the standard operating procedures set by the Ministry of Tourism, guidelines of relevant ministries and institutions, and strict health safety measures, the temperature, clean, and spray disinfectant. Phnom Penh administration says that if any owners or management of the high-risk business not implement the SOPs, They will be subjected to administrative sanctions and legal sanctions, including public disclosure of offenders in accordance with the law on measures to prevent the spread of COVID-19 and other serious and dangerous infection diseases and legal regulations.
Cambodian Human Rights Committee has conducted a workshop on disseminating the national report and recommendations of the Universal Periodic Review under the chairmanship of the CHRC head, Kiao Remy. The workshop is focused on protecting and promoting human rights, the rule of law and development in all areas. EAC News reporter Ria Soka has the story.
The workshop headed by CHRC Chairman Kiao Remy was participated by the member of Provincial Council Isarum and Deputy Governor Battambang Tupia. Tupia says that the Battambang Provincial Administration has always strived to fulfill its role and duties in serving the people, providing more effective public services, maintaining security, public order, and respecting human rights, which is a contribution to the Royal Government of Cambodia in safeguarding peace, security, respect for human rights, and development in all areas where this work must not cut or skip the participation of all citizens. Kiao Remy stresses that the Royal Government of the Kingdom of Cambodia, headed by Prime Minister Hun Sen, has brought peace and always focused on protecting and promoting human rights, the rule of law, and development in all areas. He says Cambodia is strong in the fact that Cambodia does not have the death penalty, which is a sign of its strong commitment to guaranteeing the right to life of its people, the most important fundamental right. He has added that Cambodia has received 8 out of 9 international human rights instruments, of which the Human Rights Committee is responsible for writing national reports in response to 5 international human rights conventions and to defend them at the Council of the United Nations Human Rights. Kiao Remy also says that some foreign embassies praised the measures taken by the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Cambodia in managing the situation of COVID-19, which was carefully considered until it was ranked number 4 in the world as the country that has vaccinated the most people. Rhea Soko, EAC News.
Now for a look at the news making international headlines this Tuesday, 30th of November.
Heavy rain flooded streets in the Basque city of Bilbao in northern Spain on Monday, leaving dozens of cars washed away and stranded in the floodwaters as the Nervión River broke its banks. Around 100 flood-related interventions, including the rescues of 5 motorists trapped in their cars. Spain's meteorology service, IEMET, has issued orange and yellow rain warnings across the country's north, which means the weather may cause high risks to people and property and indicates the potential impact. Bilbao Mayor José María Aburto has reported that firefighters have been called out dozens of times overnight as the storm knocked down trees, flooded streets, and produced mudslides. The footage showed cars in the neighborhood of Zorotza stuck in the floodwaters. Over the weekend, storm or rain has forced roads to close and left truck drivers stranded as heavy snowfall hit the northern parts of Spain. Amid the persistence of rain and active flooding alert, authorities have asked residents to stay away from flooded area and to park their vehicles in safe places far from the river.
Intense streams of lava flowed from its 2 new vents opening on La Palma's volcano on Monday has threatened more homes in the northeastern part of the island as the eruption entered its 10th week. The eruption continues at elevated levels with low lava fountaining and abundant lava flow emission from the new vents that opened yesterday morning around the northern base of the cone. Associated ash emissions have been rising to 1.4-kilometer altitude and drifting south-southwest over the sea. The new lava flows follow a route around the new western side of the cone and have been advancing quickly north of the existing flow field on their path, invading new land and destroying additional structures. The Canary Islands Volcanological Institute has reported that 1 new lava vent opened overnight on the Cumbre Vieja volcano as huge clouds of smoke billowed into the sky. La Palma Airport was finally able to reopen on Sunday after cleaning services removed ash accumulated over the past few days. As of Tuesday, the lava stream had engulfed 1,115 hectares of land, and the eruption has damaged or destroyed nearly 2,700 buildings, forcing the evacuation of thousands from their homes on the island. And finally, Philippines launches an ambitious drive to vaccinate 9 million people against COVID-19 over 3 days, deploying security forces and using tens of thousands of volunteers to help administer the program. The government made sure that they also have continuous second dose and boosters available to make sure everyone is vaccinated against COVID-19. The immunization campaign was scaled back from an earlier target of 15 million shots, but would still be a record in a country where vaccine hesitancy remains an obstacle and there are logistical hurdles to reach people in the sprawling archipelago. Vaccination hubs in San Juan City and Marikina City and Metropolitan Manila residents patiently lined up for their vaccinations early. Some brought their whole family, including their children. The Philippines has faced one of the worst COVID-19 outbreaks in Asia and has been slower than many of its neighbors in immunizing its people. About 35.6 million people have been fully vaccinated, a third of its 110 million population. The country aims to immunize 54 million people by the end of 2021 and 77 million by next March.
EAC News fully supports the Royal Government of Cambodia's preventative and administrative measures against COVID-19. But we need you to play your part in helping bring the 20 February community transmission event to an end. Wash your hands regularly, sanitize wherever possible. Keep an eye on your body temperature. Use the Stop COVID QR code and maintain a safe social distance. But above all, please, 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 wear a mask. Only together can we beat COVID-19. If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me, Andrew Barnes-Roberts, and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has released a statement on behalf of the royal government of Cambodia to announce Cambodia's observance of World AIDS Day, which is being held this year under the theme of End Inequalities, End AIDS, End Pandemics. World AIDS Day is held every year on December the 1st to raise awareness of the AIDS pandemic. The day offers an opportunity for people around the world to unite in the fight against AIDS, show support for people living with HIV, and commemorate those who have died from AIDS-related illnesses. EAC News reporter Dashana Gochan has the story.
The Prime Minister has congratulated the Kingdom of Cambodia on the tremendous progress made in preventing the spread of HIV/AIDS. He has called on all national and international partners to continue efforts to end the HIV/AIDS epidemic in the country. Prime Minister Hun Sen has outlined a list of accomplishments Cambodia has made on the fight against HIV/AIDS to commemorate this World AIDS Day. These accomplishments include Cambodia successfully achieving its goal of 90-90-90 in 2017, which indicates that 90% of people know their HIV status, 90% of diagnosed are on antiretroviral therapy, and 90% of those receiving antiretroviral therapy are virally suppressed. He further stated that Cambodia has been recognized for having a coverage rate of 83% for HIV/AIDS care services, which is a higher rate than major countries in Asia, such as China, India, Thailand, and Vietnam. The Prime Minister also highlighted the successful implementation of a program intended to provide financial support to poor and vulnerable families during the COVID-19 pandemic, which saw 1,974 HIV-positive families receiving over $125,000 between June 2020 and July 2021. He continued to say that Cambodia has become a frontrunner in the changing face of AIDS programs, since the country has gone from relying solely on external assistance to now having a more self-reliant, resilient, and sustainable AIDS program, thus setting an example for other countries to follow. The Prime Minister emphasized that Cambodia almost reached the global 95-95-95 target in 2020, despite going through the COVID-19 pandemic. In the spirit of achieving the 95-95-95 goal by 2025, the Prime Minister announced the main policy of the royal government is to focus on measures to end inequality, end AIDS, and end pandemics by expanding the coverage of medical services and support to people living with HIV, including the implementation of the 6 measures outlined in Letter 213 of the Office of the Council of Ministers, dated 21 February 2021. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
The First Lady of Cambodia, Bun Rani Hun Sen, has released a statement on behalf of the Cambodian Red Cross in observance of World AIDS Day. She has said that she is pleased to join the royal government, HIV/AIDS activists at all levels, and the public in commemorating this important day. She says that the Cambodian Red Cross, the National Outstanding Elite Team, and the 25 Outstanding Elite Team at both capital and provincial levels continue to provide support and encouragement to people living with HIV/AIDS through the provision of food, shelter, education, healthcare, and financing for businesses, as well as through the dissemination of knowledge and education about HIV and the importance of using antiretroviral drugs. She has added that they are promoting 3 priority projects, which are the provision of HIV prevention services to young people and the wider community, especially for the prevention of mother-to-child transmissions, providing social support to people directly and indirectly affected by HIV/AIDS, and providing services to reduce and eliminate all forms of discrimination against people living with HIV/AIDS. She has also called on the private sector and philanthropists from all walks of life to continue partnerships and providing support to the Cambodian Red Cross to contribute to the royal government's goal of achieving zero new HIV infections, zero AIDS-related deaths, and zero discrimination by 2025. Prime Minister Hun Sen has virtually met with the Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida on Wednesday. The two prime ministers have discussed the importance of bilateral, regional, and international cooperation. Prime Minister Hun Sen has hoped that the Japanese Prime Minister will attend the ASEAN summit next year, which will be hosted by Cambodia. ENC News reporter Ria Soka has the details.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has thanked the government of Japan and its people for their continued support to Cambodia's development. The Prime Minister has specified about Japan's assistance in the fight against COVID-19. The Japanese government has provided vaccine, ambulances, and other medical equipment to the Kingdom of Cambodia in the middle of COVID-19 pandemic. The Cambodian Prime Minister says Cambodia is a loyal friend of Japan. Prime Minister Hun Sen and Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida have recalled the cooperation history between the two nations. They remember the deployment of Japanese peacekeepers to Cambodia in 1992. Prime Minister Hun Sen has also asked his Japanese counterpart to continue to support the training of Cambodian students by providing scholarships and continue to encourage more investors to come to the kingdom. He has also requested to Prime Minister Fumio Kishida to continue promoting the cooperation between Japanese and Cambodian peacekeepers, especially in providing training for the Cambodian peacekeepers. On the Japanese Prime Minister's side, he has reaffirmed his readiness to support and cooperate with Cambodia in hosting ASEAN Summit next year. Since 2023 is the 70th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Cambodia and Japan, and also the 50th anniversary of Japan-ASEAN friendship, both prime ministers have agreed to organize a program to commemorate these two anniversaries. Reyes Soko, EAC News.
The Indonesian Foreign Minister, Retno Marsudi, has paid a courtesy visit to Prime Minister Hun Sen at the Peace Palace on Wednesday morning. The Foreign Minister arrived in Phnom Penh on Tuesday afternoon for a two-day official visit to Cambodia. The visit was made at the invitation of the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Prak Sokhonn. EAC News reporter Deshani Gochan has more details.
Minister Delegate to the Prime Minister Kao Kim Hoon has confirmed that Prime Minister Hun Sen and the Indonesian Foreign Minister Retno Marsudi discussed the resumption of flights between Cambodia and Indonesia since Cambodia has now reopened the country. The Indonesian Foreign Minister expressed her appreciation for the good relations and cooperation between Cambodia and Indonesia, and also stated that she considers the 88% vaccination rate against both COVID-19 and measles in Cambodia to be a high rate. After meeting with the Prime Minister, Indonesian Foreign Minister Retno Marsudi also met with the Minister of Foreign Affairs Prak Sokhonn to discuss aspects of bilateral relations and cooperation, including Cambodia's priorities during the upcoming 2022 ASEAN chairmanship. The Cambodian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has expressed that they expect the official visit of the Indonesian Foreign Minister will continue to strengthen and deepen the long-term relations and close cooperation between Cambodia and Indonesia in both bilateral and multilateral frameworks for the mutual benefit of both nations and the world. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
The newly appointed French ambassador in the Kingdom of Cambodia, Jacques Pellet, has paid a courtesy visit to the Cambodian Foreign Minister on Tuesday. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Prak Sokhonn, has warmly welcomed the French ambassador, thanking France for its significant contribution to the multi-sectoral recovery and redevelopment of the Cambodian economy, especially in the fields of education, health, justice, agriculture, tourism, and other sectors. EAC News reporter Ria Soka has more.
Foreign Minister Prak Sokhonn praises France as the key architect who contributed to the achievement of the Paris Peace Accords. He says the congratulatory message of the French Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jean-Yves Le Drian, has meant a lot, confirming the close relationship between the two countries, which is developed on the basis of strong and lasting friendship, as well as the common history between Cambodia and France. Ambassador Jacques Pillay has said that he is honored to fulfill his diplomatic mission in Cambodia with great pleasure. He has commended the royal government of Cambodia for its effort in the fight against COVID-19. According to the ambassador, the vaccination rate in Cambodia is among the countries with the highest vaccination rates in the world. At the same time, the ambassador also praised the successful organization of the 13th Asia-Europe Summit. He has said that France is committed to further strengthen and expand the existing friendly relations and cooperation between the two countries to be closer and better in all fields effectively. French Ambassador Jacques Pillay has added that as the rotating chair of the Council of the European Union in the first half of January to the end of June 2022, France will hold a ministerial forum on regional cooperation Indo-Pacific on 22 February 2022, inviting all European Union foreign ministers and foreign ministers of Indo-Pacific countries, especially Cambodia, the chair of ASEAN, to participate in this forum, which will discuss key topics. It will highlight on security and defense, connectivity, and digitalization and global issues such as climate change, biodiversity, and marine health. The two officials have agreed to provide mutual cooperation to strengthen and expand closer and better relations and cooperation in the bilateral framework, as well as the two regional organizations in particular when Cambodia is the chair of ASEAN and France is the rotating chair of the Council of the European Union next year. The French side is preparing to hold a joint event to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries in 2022. Rhea Soko, EAC News.
Now for a look at the news making international headlines this Wednesday, the 1st of December.
A 15-year-old boy has killed 3 fellow school students and wounded 8 other people upon opening fire with a semi-automatic handgun at a Michigan high school on Tuesday. The boy was quickly taken into custody by the police. At least one of those wounded was a teacher at Oxford High School in Oxford, Michigan, about 55 kilometers north of Detroit. The suspect has fired multiple shots at the scene and there's multiple victims. 3 students died on the spot. The suspect, a sophomore high school, was believed to have acted alone and was arrested without resistance after firing 15 to 20 shots, the country's sheriff has reported. The whole thing lasted 5 minutes.
A huge fire broke out at a factory of construction materials in the municipality of Quilicura in the north of Santiago, Chile on Monday. A footage shows a dark pillar of toxic smoke rising into the sky and spreading out above the city amid blustery conditions. There are several elements mixed like in any industrial warehouse. Smoke from any fire is toxic. It contains particles from different decaying objects, so those warm gases and particles accumulating are toxic. A report from the Santiago International Airport Fire and Security Office has said that the plume of smoke did not affect the operation of the terminals, but that some planes flying from south to north were being diverted. The emergency also caused traffic jams and diversions in the area, which has major highways. As a precaution, municipal authorities suspended schools' activities for the day.
And the new COVID-19 variant, Omicron, was present in the Netherlands earlier than previously thought, officials have confirmed. It was identified in 2 test samples taken in the country between 19 and 23rd of November, which is before the variant was first reported by South Africa. It was previously thought that the 2 flights that arrived from South Africa on Sunday had brought the first cases of the variant to the Netherlands. At least 14 people on flights from Johannesburg and Cape Town have arrived at Amsterdam Airport on November 26, carrying the new variant, the National Institute for Public Health, RIVM, has reported. However, while the two new samples reveal Omicron was in the Netherlands earlier than thought, they do not predate the cases in Southern Africa. The variant was first found in the specimen collected on 9 November, according to the World Health Organization. Early evidence suggests Omicron has a higher reinfection risk, but scientists say it will take about 3 weeks before it is known how the heavily mutated variant impacts on the effectiveness of vaccines. Principal virologist of RIVM National Institute for Public Health and Environment and top expert at Center for Infectious Disease Control of Netherlands, Chantal Riosken, says they are currently collecting all data from their system and send to the lab all suspicious samples. When Europe has reported the earliest day that someone tested positive for Omicron variant, but the research they had started may show otherwise.
The Kingdom of Cambodia is commemorating the 43rd anniversary of the Kampuchea United Front for National Salvation. It is also simply referred to as the Salvation Front. It has been 43 years since Cambodian people were liberated from the Khmer Rouge regime, later establishing the People's Republic of Kampuchea. EAC News reporter Ria Soka has the story.
Kampuchea United Front for National Salvation was formed on the 2nd of December 1978. Its foundation took place in Krochi province, near the border with Vietnam, at a meeting of 70 dissident Cambodians determined to overthrow Pol Pot's regime. At that time, Heng Samrin, who is now Cambodia's National Assembly President, was voted as a leader of the front. Within few weeks of determination and coordination with its members, the group's influence spread widely on both sides of the border. It led to the defeat of the Khmer Rouge Democratic Kampuchea. Cambodia was then called People's Republic of Kampuchea. National Assembly President Heng Samrin has written a special message on Thursday. He has reminded people that the United Front for National Salvation of Cambodia, which was later renamed United Front for the Development of Motherland Cambodia, was formed by great unity of the people, both inside and outside the country. He says the courageous people involved in liberating the people with him were the late Senate President Chea Sim and Prime Minister Hun Sen. The National Assembly President has also acknowledged the other patriotic heroes in organizing forces to overthrow the genocidal regime of Pol Pot. He says people have stood together as a force for national unity and with the great support of neighboring countries around the world. Cambodia achieved a great victory on the 8th of January 1979, a month after the Kampuchea United Front for National Salvation was formed. Reyes Soko, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has led the inauguration ceremony of 37 infrastructure accomplishments in Pria Sihanouk province. The development in Pria Sihanouk, specifically in Sihanoukville, is part of the effort to transform the province into a multi-purpose one. During his speech, the Prime Minister has delivered a strong message in line with the royal government efforts to better the future, not only for Cambodians, but all the people living in the kingdom. EAC News reporter Deshana Gochan has the story.
34 road infrastructure projects and 3 wastewater plant stations have been inaugurated in Pria Sihanouk province on Thursday. The ceremony was led by Prime Minister Hun Sen, delivering strong messages for his people and the whole country. The Prime Minister says that the province of Pria Sihanouk will be core in the economic recovery of the kingdom, as the royal government is transforming it into a multi-purpose province. The wastewater treatment system will be used by the people to consume clean water, especially for the environment. The Prime Minister says that as the province bears beautiful beaches, people will no longer worry about swimming in dirty waters. The provincial roads are also being developed to attract more investors to the country. In his speech, Prime Minister Hun Sen has emphasized that these are the results of the government's efforts to benefit the people and the next generation. The projects that were inaugurated on Thursday are worth $300 million. The implementation has been participated by both public and private institutions. The Prime Minister says that Cambodia is developing fast, which is the fruit of his win-win strategy. He has also reaffirmed the royal government's commitment to continue protecting peace, monarchy, and the throne, which are very important for Cambodia's progress and development. Prime Minister Hun Sen says that after fully reopening Cambodia, the national budget revenue has increased. He has acknowledged the success of the fight against COVID-19 and the country's rapid vaccination campaign as the main routes for Cambodia's early reopening of the economy compared to other countries. He has also mentioned that despite the situation with the pandemic, the royal government of Cambodia continues to build strong relations with other countries, not only ASEAN countries, but from other regions as well. Prime Minister Hun Sen says that he is even ready to travel to Myanmar in the near future. He says that the exclusion of Myanmar from ASEAN would be detrimental to the economic union, which has 10 member countries from Southeast Asia. The Prime Minister emphasizes the importance of Myanmar in the ASEAN group. He has also revealed that the Foreign Minister of Myanmar will visit Cambodia next week, from 6th to 7th December. Cambodia's ASEAN chairmanship will commence in 2022, holding discussions on regional and global issues. With the issue regarding Cambodia's Ream naval base, Prime Minister Hun Sen has given a striking message that the kingdom must no longer allow visitors. He has recalled the issue with the United States. He says that before, the kingdom openly received foreign visits, yet they were still unsatisfied with the privilege provided. Back in June, Prime Minister Hun Sen allowed American Defense Attaché Colonel Marcus Ferrara to visit and inspect the naval base. However, the U.S. Embassy has posted on its Facebook page that Colonel Ferrara has decided to end his visit when he was not allowed to visit all areas of Ream Naval Base, requesting another full inspection while claiming Cambodia's base is being controlled by China. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has announced his full support to his son, Hun Manat, as the next Prime Minister of the kingdom. However, he says Hun Manat must go through an election. This was revealed by Prime Minister Hun Sen during his speech at the inauguration ceremony of the infrastructure projects in Pria Sihanouk province on Thursday morning. The Prime Minister has expressed his anger towards the opposition for inferring his son as being the son of a Vietnamese leader. He has also added that he's raised his son well, not to be a thief, and he wants him to be the next leader of the royal government of Cambodia.
រឿងពង្រឹងអំណាចច្បាស់ណាស់ហ៊ុនសែននឹងបន្តពង្រឹងអំណាចរបស់ខ្លួនបន្ថែមដើម្បីទុកឲ្យកូនឲ្យក្មេងជាន់ក្រោយព្រោះមិនមែនកូនខ្ញុំតែម្នាក់ធ្វើកើតទេវាទៅសំណុំរឿងរបស់វាមកកភ្លុះដែលមានមន្ត្រីក្មេងៗនោះវាមិនដែរអាណាដឹកនាំប្រទេសម្នាក់ឯងទេរឿងហ៊ុនម៉ាណែតនិយាយឲ្យច្បាស់ថ្ងៃនេះហ្មងហ៊ុនម៉ាណែតជាបេក្ខជនមួយក្នុងចំណោមបេក្ខជននាយករដ្ឋមន្ត្រីដែលមានការគ្រប់គ្រងពីឪពុករបស់ខ្លួន
The 44-year-old eldest son of Prime Minister Hun Sen was the first Cambodian to graduate from the West Point Military Academy in the United States. He is also a Doctor of Economics at the University of Bristol in the United Kingdom. Currently, he is a 3-star Lieutenant General and the Deputy Commander-in-Chief and Commander-in-Chief of the Royal Cambodian Armed Forces. The Premier has advised his son to build a reputation among the public, as Cambodia is a democratic nation and the post will only be won via his election. Prime Minister Hun Sen has instructed the Ministry of Health to consider reviewing travel measures from 10 countries in Africa. This was following the ban imposed by Cambodia on Monday for travellers from 10 South African countries. He has urged the Health Ministry to use PCR tests, especially in testing international arrivals and strengthening the health measures in the kingdom. EAC News reporter Yuri Matosko has the details.
Prime Minister Hun Sen says, do not fear the new COVID-19 variant. He has encouraged people not to be afraid. Instead, just strengthen the preventive measures as what Cambodian is known in doing. The Kingdom of Cambodia has been praised internationally the way it is handling COVID-19 situation. especially the rapid vaccination campaign of the government. But with the emergence of the new COVID-19 variant called Omicron, people are afraid that Cambodia might close the country again. However, on Sunday, the Ministry of Health says that Cambodia has no plan yet of closing. Instead, it released an announcement on Monday evening to ban travelers from 10 South African countries. The countries are Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho, Mozambique, Namibia, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Malawi, Angola, and Zambia. Speaking at the inauguration of road infrastructure, wastewater treatment plants, and achievements in Sihanoukville on Thursday morning, Prime Minister Hun Sen has agreed with the policy of the Secretary-General of the United Nations, who took the decision of other countries to close flights from certain countries in Africa. He stressed that the world should not leave Africa isolated. He then instructed the Minister of Health to discuss with the Minister of Economy how it would be possible to open borders with those African countries. The Prime Minister has suggested that the ban of the 10 countries should be reconsidered, implementing required testing measures. He has encouraged the Minister of Health to use PCR tests for the international arrivals. Yuri Matosko, EAC News.
Khmer cuisine is extending its global reach. The Taste of Angkor, a cookbook prepared and published by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as part of its cultural diplomacy, has been awarded the title of Best Asian Cookbook at the 2021 Gourmand World Cookbook Awards. The Taste of Angkor was first unveiled in January by Foreign Minister Prak Sokhonn. Copies of the cookbook were provided to Cambodian diplomats to be presented as gifts to foreign dignitaries. EAC News reporter Deshana Gochan has the story.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has announced on Wednesday that the Taste of Angkor cookbook has been awarded the distinction of Best Asian Cookbook at the Gourmand World Cookbook Awards. The award ceremony is currently being held in Paris, France from 29th November to 6 December. The Gourmand World Cookbook Awards has been honoring the best food and wine books as well as food television every year since 1995. In 2021, there were 198 countries entering the competition with a total submission of 4,000 cookbooks. Minister of Foreign Affairs Prak Sokhonn had first unveiled the Taste of Angkor on January 18th of this year, which the Ministry of Foreign Affairs published to promote cultural diplomacy through the cornerstone of food. The cookbook contains 38 recipes of Khmer dishes and desserts with detailed and easy-to-follow instructions, including substitutions for Khmer ingredients that may be hard to source abroad. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs states that this cookbook is a great contribution of the royal government of Cambodia's advancement of its food and cultural diplomacy. They continued to say that receiving the distinguished title of Best Asian Cookbook from the Gourmand World Cookbook Awards is a fresh source of pride and honor for the Kingdom of Cambodia's efforts to get the world to know and truly appreciate the great legacy of Cambodia's 1,000-year-old culinary heritage. Darshana Gauchan, EAC News.
Along with the successful vaccination campaign, the royal government has been slowly reopening schools for all ages. High school institutions resumed their classes in September, followed by universities, secondary and primary schools. Then on Wednesday, the Ministry of Education has finally announced to also reopen the kindergartens and daycare services for children, for those over 5 years old. EAC News reporter Yuri Matosko has the details.
In November, COVID-19 infections has sharply dropped, reaching to 20 cases a day, allowing the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sports to announce the reopening of kindergartens and child care services for children from 5 years old. Immediately on Wednesday, the first day of December, kindergarten and daycare services for children from 5 years old in public and private institutions are allowed to resume their classes. It was approved by the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sports after kindergartens and nurseries have been ordered to shut as a way to contain the spread of COVID-19 virus in this group age. Following the resumption of classes nationwide on the 1st of November, Prime Minister Hun Sen has expressed concern on the children in kindergarten, children who are 5 years old. This made him decide to also vaccinate this age group against COVID-19 so they will not be left behind the school. The situation has improved in just a month, with the vaccination campaign targeting a total of 304,000 children, reaching 86.76% in the 1st of December. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Sports, however, has stressed the importance of continuing applying all SOPs and health measures instructed by the Ministry of Health, such as following the 3 does and don'ts practice, as well as sanitizing students' desks and checking their temperatures at the entrance. Yuri Matosco, EAC News.
Now for a look at news making international headlines this Thursday, 2nd of December.
An eyewitness terrifying video shows a big shark chasing a pair of surfers and one surfer's close brush with it at Puerto Rico's Meadows Beach on Monday. As the surfers began to frantically paddle toward shore, the shark briefly followed them, its large dorsal fin exposed above the water. George Benetis, who was at the beach, has filmed his friend's encounter with the shark. Surfers say such sighting was not common in the sea. An onlooker shares it was the first real shark he saw on the beach. Although it's known they are around the areas, but it seems that they have enough food, so the place has barely had incidents, if any. Both surfers were able to escape without injury.
Dramatic video filmed by Japan Coast Guard shows a 69-year-old man sitting on the bottom of his capsized boat while clinging to its propeller during a miracle rescue by Coast Guard at sea off southern Japan after spending 22 hours on rough sea. The man was on a 5-ton boat Daiko Takamaru alone to work on a port construction project off the resort island of Yakushima when the boat overturned. The old man drifted in choppy waters for nearly a day while clinging to the bottom of his capsized boat until he was saved by the Coast Guard. After receiving a call from his colleagues, Coast Guard rescues searched for him for nearly a day before spotting him in a rough seas about 30 kilometers from the place he disappeared. The man sustained a minor injury on his left ankle. Coast Guard official says he's amazed by the old man's survival skills. The man was able to wrap himself in a gray plastic sheet, helping him stay warm. The Japan Coast Guard is looking into the cause of the accident.
And at least 2 car bombs planted by criminal gangs have exploded outside the prison in central Mexico on Wednesday during an attack to free 9 inmates, local authorities have reported. The armed group broke into the jail in Tula and has opened fire, injuring a guard and a police officer before detonating 2 car bombs that rammed into the walls of the prison in order to free 9 jailed inmates. The car bombs were detonated in the vicinity of the jail to distract security forces while the operation was being carried out in the prison. Among those who escaped is Jose Artemio Maldonado, better known as El Michoacano, the alleged leader of Pueblos Unidos, a criminal group based in the Mexican state of Michoacan. Local police, members of the National Guard, and the Mexican Army have fanned out looking for the escaped inmates who are still at large.
The King of the Kingdom of Cambodia, His Majesty King Norodom Sihamoni, praises the efforts of the Royal Government of Cambodia and the Red Cross for continuously supporting the lives of people with disabilities in Cambodia. The message of the King is on the occasion of the 23rd and 39th International Day of Persons with Disabilities on the 3rd of December. He says His Majesty and the Queen Mother are always considerate and giving royal wealth through royal representatives to help the poor, the most vulnerable, especially the disabled. EAC News reporter Ria Soka has the story.
The King understands that Cambodia, under the leadership of the head of the royal government, Prime Minister Hun Sen, who is also the honorary chairman of the Council for the Actions of Persons with Disabilities, has gradually improved the lives of the persons with disabilities. The King also expressed His Royal Highness support for the royal government, which has a high level of realism in promoting leadership and participation of persons with disabilities to move towards a more comprehensive post-COVID-19 crisis comfort and accessibility. King Norodom Sihamoni has expressed his gratitude and appreciation to the royal government and the Cambodian Red Cross for always giving compassion and mercy to persons with disabilities who have suffered in the past. He has also thanked the national and international community for their generous support, both materially and financially, to help make the disability sector in the Kingdom of Cambodia successful. As the COVID-19 continues to spread in the country, the king also calls on all Cambodians, especially the disabled, to be vaccinated as directed by the royal government of Cambodia and to continue to implement health measures as well as the 3 measures, the 3 dose and 3 don'ts protection issued by the Prime Minister Hun Sen as well. The report from the General Secretariat of the Council for Disability Action, nearly 700,000 persons with disabilities in Cambodia, while the situation of people with disabilities is constantly being taken care of by the royal government to make the persons with disabilities able to participate in the development of the country, just like ordinary citizens. Raya Soko, EAC News.
The remains of Prince Norodom Ranariddh will arrive in Cambodia on Sunday. His half-brother, King Norodom Sihamoni, and Queen Mother Norodom Moniniath Shinanook has donated $120,000 on Thursday for the prince's funeral. His body will be brought back home from France by a charter flight. Prince Norodom Ranariddh succumbed to his illness on Sunday in France. Prime Minister Hun Sen earlier announced that the royal government has organised a committee to arrange the funeral of the prince, in accordance with the Buddhist and royal family traditions. Beyond being a premier, Prime Minister Hun Sen is also the honorary chairman of the Council for Disability Action. He issued a message on Friday in celebration of the National and International Day of Persons with Disabilities, expressing concern for the well-being of all disabled people in the country. The Prime Minister has also encouraged all citizens to keep improving the welfare of people with disabilities so they can have the same opportunities as any other citizens of the kingdom. EAC News reporter Yuri Matosko has the story.
On Friday, Cambodia observes the 23rd International Day of Persons with Disabilities, as well as the 39th International Day for Environmentally and Sustainable Friendly Day. Prime Minister Hun Sen has mentioned the compassion and dedication of the King of the Kingdom of Cambodia, His Majesty Norodom Sihamoni, and His Majesty the Queen Mother, who always take care of the PWDs. He has added that Majesty Norodom Sihamoni and the Queen Mother has been giving royal gifts for the people with disabilities and to children affected by the pandemic of COVID-19. The Prime Minister has also called on all ministries, institutions, and competent authorities to implement the National Strategic Plan on Disability 2019-2023, updated with measures to prevent outbreaks of COVID-19 that might affect persons with disabilities, as well as encourage all persons with disabilities to maintain health measures to protect themselves from COVID-19. He further urged ministries, public and private institutions to encourage persons with disabilities who have the qualifications and ability to fulfill roles in their institutions without discrimination, in line with facility of access to public places for PWDs. This includes special parking arrangements such as ramps, equipment, handrails, specialized bathrooms, doors, and signs in all public and private locations. At the same time, he called on the Ministry of Information to guide all public and private radio and television stations or any media outlets to increase broadcast times with sign language translation, especially information on outbreaks and prevention of COVID-19. According to a report of the Disability Action Council General Secretariat, 700,000 people living with disabilities in Cambodia. The condition of persons with disabilities is constantly being assisted by the royal government, so any persons with disabilities can be able to participate in the development of the country, just like ordinary citizens. Although Cambodia has suffered from the COVID-19 crisis, which has affected the jobs and occupations of people, especially the ones with disabilities, the royal government continues to provide cash to the poor and vulnerable to families with equity cards, In fact, they have provided cash to about 678,459 families, which will cost over $461 million from 25 June 2020 to 24 September 2021. 61,426 persons with disabilities, 336,029 people over the age of 60, and 1,958 families living with HIV also received this allowance. The royal government of Cambodia has decided to continue to provide cash assistance to poor and vulnerable families during the 7th round of COVID-19, which covers October, November, and December 2021. Yuri Matosco, EAC News.
After Prime Minister Hun Sen announced on Thursday that he is fully backing his son Hun Manet to become the next Prime Minister, Cambodian leaders have expressed their full support. On Thursday, Hun Manet's name became the centre of the news worldwide after his father's announcement. But the question is, who is Hun Manet? EAC News reporter Ria Soko tells the story.
Hun Manet is the eldest son of Prime Minister Hun Sen and wife Bunrani Hun Sen. The couple has 5 children. 1 died. Hun Manet was born on October 20, 1977 in Mimot District, Kampong Cham Province, now part of the Bungkomon Province. He studied at Komari Primary and Secondary School, now Chaktumuk Primary and Secondary School, from 1980 to 1990, and continued his education at Pinumdaon Pen High School, now being called Priasisuwat High School, from 1990 to 1993. Hun Manet always excelled in mathematics. He ranked first in mathematics challenged throughout the country. In the book, Bonrani, the wife of the strong man of Cambodia, the wife of Prime Minister Hun Sen, Mrs. Bonrani Hun Sen, said that her children have to travel on their own to go to school, like the other ordinary children. It also states that the Prime Minister always educates his children about morality and virtue. Every time they receive a book on the relationship between the school and the family, the father always checks and comments to the teacher, asking for help to teach morality and good character to his children. After graduating from high school, Hun Manet enlisted in the military in 1995. He also attended the Military Academy in West Point, USA, and received his degree on May 29, 1999. Hun Manet was the first Cambodian to study and receive a degree from this university. In addition to his military science skills, Hun Manet also holds a PhD and became the doctor in economics from the University of Bristol, United Kingdom. At present, Hun Manet has a rank of 3-star Lieutenant General as a Deputy Commander-in-Chief and Commander-in-Chief of the Royal Cambodian Armed Forces. He is married to Pich Chanmuni and has 2 children. Prime Minister Hun Sen's announcement to support Hun Manet's candidacy for the next Prime Minister has surprised the world, while a series of supporting messages appear from the Prime Minister's decision. Rhea Soko, EAC News.
The WHO Regional Office for the Western Pacific has conducted a virtual press conference on Friday morning. The conference was focused on updates of COVID-19, particularly the new Omicron variant, which the WHO has classified as a variant of concern. The regional director, Dr. Takeshi Kasai, joined by his fellow WHO colleagues, took the time to answer some questions regarding the Omicron variant and what measures and practices are best recommended for countries to follow. EAC News reporter Dashana Gochan attended the conference.
In his opening remarks at the press conference, WHO Western Pacific Regional Director Dr. Takeshi Kasai spoke of the progress the world and the Western Pacific region has made in the fight against COVID-19, including the reduction of severe illnesses and deaths as a result of widespread vaccinations. While Dr. Kasai said that most parts of the Western Pacific are trending in the right direction, He stressed that we must not become complacent, as global cases have seen a consecutive rise in the past 7 weeks. Especially with the identification of the new Omicron variant and the upcoming holiday season, he said that people should not be surprised to see more surges in COVID-19 cases in the near future, and should most of all remain vigilant. Regional Emergencies Director Dr. Babatunde Olawukur also outlined some of the latest information the WHO has regarding the Omicron variant, which include an increased transmissibility suggested by the spread of the variant in South Africa and the growing spread across the world, as well as preliminary evidence which points to the possibility of reinfection. He further stated that there is no new information yet regarding disease severity and vaccine performance. Hence, the situation must continue to be closely monitored. Dr. Kasai also answered a question from EAC News.
The next question that we have is from Darshana Gauchan with EAC News in Cambodia. A question also about Omicron and this time borders. Cambodia has already fully reopened to tourists since the 15th of November. What is your advice in relation to the new COVID-19 variant Omicron? Do you advise countries to restrict borders again?
Cambodia is actually the country that impressed me repeatedly. For example, they know how to effectively use the limited vaccines and prioritize the target groups. And as a result, I received the information that the healthcare worker, 100%, older people, more than 19%. And after that, they expand. And for general public, age above 18, is already reaching close to 96%, and then trying to continue to expand that vaccine.
Dr. Kasai added that the information he has received about the strategies Cambodia is using to save lives, protect health, and ensure a safe and sustainable reopening are in line with WHO discussions with member states. Hence, he looks forward to seeing the implementation results. He continued on to say that he understands that people are concerned about the Omicron variant, and that any temporary border measures being taken will only reduce the risk of importation, but will not be able to completely stop the virus from entering the country. He emphasized that countries should not just rely on border controls and become complacent, and everyone must continue individual practices to protect themselves, their families, and their community. He added that governments must also continue to request the business sector to actively assess the situation of risk and introduce mitigation measures accordingly. And the same applies for schools, where we must move away from a zero-risk approach and full school closures, which negatively impact youth, and instead move towards a risk-based approach that is more adaptive to the immediate context. Dr. Kasai praised Cambodia for being a country that has experienced the Delta variant and successfully repressed the spread of cases. In relation to Omicron, he recommends that Cambodia and other countries in the region continue to use those experiences and lessons learned to be ready for any future surges. He stressed that we must continue to strive towards a society that can cope with the continuous surge and repeated emergence of new variants. Darshana Gauchan, EAC News.
The defense chiefs of the United States and South Korea said on Thursday they would review and update ways to deter North Korea, even as they emphasized a growing regional role for Seoul. North Korea's missile and weapons developments are increasingly destabilizing for regional security, US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has said, after talks with his South Korean counterpart, Shu Wook. But the two sides also discussed issues beyond the Korean Peninsula.
A changing security environment prompted the United States and South Korea to agree to update strategic guidance about how they plan for a potential conflict with North Korea.
We also reaffirmed our shared assessment that the DPRK is continuing to advance its missile and weapons programs, which is increasingly destabilizing for regional security. The United States and the ROK remain committed to a diplomatic approach to the DPRK, and we continue to call upon the DPRK to engage in dialogue.
They also review their combined military command. Seo has said U.S. and South Korean officials caution that the updates to the contingency war plans are routine and not a preparation for war. Currently, the United States would command allied troops in the event of war, but South Korea has been seeking to gain operational control.
At today's meeting, we shared many progress status related to these tasks and agreed to conclude them within next year. In addition, after reaffirming that conditions listed in the operational control, transition plan must be sufficiently satisfied. We also decide to execute the future Combined Forces Command and full operational capability assessment in 2022.
Seo has added that the two sides made progress on meeting conditions for OPCON transfer to South Korea and agreed to assess the future command's full operational capability next year.
Whatever we do will be done as a part of an international community. The best case, though, is that we won't see an incursion by the Soviet Union into Ukraine. And so we would hope that Putin would be a lot more transparent, and we would work to resolve issues and concerns and lower the temperature in the region.
Austin also suggested any U.S. response to Russia's actions towards Ukraine would be carried out in conjunction with the international community, as he called on Moscow to be transparent about its military buildup. Darshana Gauchan, EAC News.
Now for a look at the news making international headlines this Friday, 3rd of December.
Heavy rains that triggered floods and landslides in central Vietnam, leaving at least 18 people missing. Authorities say some feared dead, with houses destroyed and roads damaged. The Vietnam Disaster Management Agency has reported that heavy rain, flooding, and landslides have affected the provinces of Quang Nam, Quang Ngai, Binh Dinh, Po Yen, and Kon Tum. Heavy rain began 1 week ago. The government has said that rains have subsided. However, efforts were underway to locate those missing. One person died after being swept away by floods waters in Kon Plong District, Kon Tum Province, while another victim died in floods in An Lao District, Binh Dinh, the following day. BDMA reported 2,617 houses were damaged by floods, including 17 in Phu Yen, 1,500 in Binh Dinh, and 950 in Quang Ngai. A total of 182 households have been evacuated across the province of Quang Nam, mostly affected by landslides. Landslides and flooding have blocked national highways, interprovincial and local roads, while communities have been left isolated in 3 provinces. Schools and educational establishments have been closed, and thousands of students are missing classes in Binh Dinh province due to massive flooding. Beach towns Phu Yen, Binh Dinh, and Vietnam's main coffee-growing province, Dak Lak, were hardest hit. The floods have inundated 780 hectares, about 7.8 square kilometers of rice fields, although no damage has been reported so far to coffee farms. Vietnam is prone to storms and flooding due to its long coastline. Natural disasters, predominantly floods and landslides from storms, killed 378 people last year.
Ukraine holds artillery drills next to the borders of Russian-annexed Crimea, as reported by the Defense Ministry on Wednesday. Servicemen train weekly their skills in preparing practical actions to detect and destroy airborne forces of an imaginary enemy. The commander of Joint Forces of Armed Forces of Ukraine, Serhiy Nayev, says the Ukrainian military are ready for military actions under different scenarios. The drills also aimed at detecting and destroying an enemy take place weekly. While Howitzer Artillery Crew Commander Volodymyr has declared that the soldiers must undergo such drills regularly so not to forget some details. A footage shows servicemen setting up and operating Howitzer systems. Russia has been building up forces near its borders with Ukraine, and Kiev, the United States, and NATO have voiced concerns about a possible Russian attack, a suggestion the Kremlin has dismissed as false. Ukrainian troops have fought Russian-backed separatists in a conflict in eastern Ukraine that Kiev says has killed 14,000 people since 2014. Meanwhile, Russia is also having its regular winter military drills in the southern military district, parts of which border Ukraine, and that 10,000 troops had relocated to training grounds across the huge area. The Defense Ministry has made a statement that the drills would also take place in Crimea, the Black Sea Peninsula which Russia annexed from Ukraine in 2014, and in a Russian region bordering Donbass, a swath of eastern Ukraine seized by Russian-backed separatists the same year. US officials, NATO, and Ukraine have for weeks been raising the alarm about a possibly new Russian attack on Ukraine, pointing to unusual Russian troops movements near its borders. Russia has dismissed those suggestions as fear-mongering and has said it has the right to move its troops on its own territory as it sees fit. The Russian military drills, which involve motorized infantry units, would take place in more than 30 training grounds in at least 6 different regions.
And torrential rains battered the northwest town of Medellin for 2 days, from Tuesday to Thursday, causing massive flooding across the city streets, sweeping away vehicles, buses, rocks, destroying everything on its path, in rivers overflowing and blocking many roads. Authorities have reported that the torrential rain left 80 houses flooded and 7 injured. No fatalities have been reported. Authorities will hold an extraordinary risk management meeting to discuss measures to be taken for the immediate relief of affected residents.
EAC News fully supports the Royal Government of Cambodia's preventative and administrative measures against COVID-19. But we need you to play your part in helping bring the 20 February community transmission event to an end. Wash your hands regularly, sanitize wherever possible. Keep an eye on your body temperature. Use the Stop COVID QR code and maintain a safe social distance. But above all, please, 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 wear a mask. Only together can we beat COVID-19. If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me, Andrew Barnes-Roberts, and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear.
Members of the Qatar national soccer team took time out from their preparations for the Arab Cup on Sunday to hold a training session with some tournament volunteers. The 16-team competition runs over the next 3 weeks and is a dress rehearsal for next year's World Cup, which will take place in the Middle East for the first time. Qatar has spent the last decade preparing for one of the biggest events in the world, building state-of-the-art stadiums and commissioning infrastructure projects worth billions of dollars.
I think this is a nice experience to be participating in the Arab Cup, and it's going to be in the same facilities as the World Cup. And it's going to be a nice experience also to be ready for the World Cup.
The 5,000 volunteers for the Arab Cup will be drawn from Qatar's diverse expat population, with dozens of nationalities represented, as well as a small number of people coming from overseas.
I would really recommend other people to become volunteers. It's like you learn a lot, you gain a lot, and you also give your skills and what you have, and you meet people from all over the world. It's like a big melting pot, one big happy family.
More than 35,000 people applied to be a volunteer, with those chosen helping fans, players and media at the tournament, which will end on December the 18th, exactly a year before the World Cup final. Taiwan's Chang Shichang made a 4-foot par putt on the final hole to win the $1 million Blue Canyon Phuket Championship on Sunday, as the Asian Tour returned for action for the first time in almost 2 years. Chan pit playing partner Saddam Kawanja for the $180,000 first prize, as he finished on 18 under for the tournament, one shot clear of the Thai golfer.
Sadon Kalkanjana had looked set to take the tournament into a playoff, but had his first dropped shot of the day when he missed a 6-foot par putt on the last hole, dropping him into a share for second with South Korea's Kim Joo-hyun. Chan has started the day tied for the lead with Siwon Kim from the United States, and the American appeared to be cruising to the title, despite starting his final round with a bogey. Kim reached the 10th 4 under for the day after a run of 3 successive birdies from the 8th, and at one point he held a 3-shot lead. That all changed on the back 9. A bogey at the par 4 13th reduced Kim's lead to a single stroke, and by the time he had rolled out at the 15th, the 33-year-old was in a 3-way tie with Saddam and Chan, who had pulled level on 17 under after both birdied the par 5. Saddam and Chan then birdied the 16th to leave Kim adrift for the first time, and a bogey at the par 3 17th meant he eventually finished in a 4-way tie for 4th. That turned the tournament into a final hole shootout, and after both Chan and Saddam missed the green with their approach shots, the Taiwanese golfer claimed the title when he rolled in his par putt following Saddam's miss. The event was the first on the Asian Tour since the Malaysian Open in March 2020 due to the ongoing pandemic. It comes a month after the organization announced it will be launching 10 new events in 2022 in partnership with Live Golf Investments, a company backed by Saudi Arabia's public investment fund worth a total of $200 million.
The French club has announced on Monday that Paris Saint-Germain's Brazil forward Neymar faces 6 to 8 weeks on the sidelines due to an ankle sprain. He sustained it in Sunday's 3-1 Liga the First comeback victory against 10-man Saint Etienne. The 29-year-old twisted his ankle in the dying seconds of the match after treading on the leg of Saint Etienne's Ivan McCall, which left him screaming in agony as he was carried off.
Neymar was later pictured leaving the Stade Geoffroy Guichard Stadium on crutches. PSG says that examinations carried out last night confirmed that Neymar Jr. suffers from a sprained left ankle with ligament injuries. PSG has added that an unavailability of 6 to 8 weeks is to be expected, adding that his injury will be evaluated again in 72 hours. Neymar had earlier said in an Instagram post that setbacks were part of an athlete's life and vowed to come back better and stronger. PSG Lionel Messi set up all 3 goals in the game as they stretched their lead at the top to 12 points.
Frank Williams, founder and former boss of a team that bore his name, a team that still ranks as one of the most dominant and successful in the history of Formula One, died on Sunday at the age of 79. Williams had been paralyzed since 1986, when at the age of 43 his rental car crashed as he was leaving the La Castella circuit in the south of France, where his team was testing Formula One cars. One of the longest-lived quadriplegics, he responded to the physical disability by steering his team to even greater success, watching from his wheelchair in the team garage. In 2012, he handed over day-to-day running of the team to his daughter Claire, who was officially the deputy principal. He had been admitted to hospital on Friday, and the British-based team said that he passed away peacefully this morning, surrounded by his family. Williams was sold to US-based Doralton Capital last year, and the family are no longer associated. Under his leadership, the team won 9 Constructors' Championships and 7 Drivers' titles, most recently with the Canadian Jacques Villeneuve in 1997, and 114 Grand Prix. The last was in 2012. Only Ferrari have won more Constructors' titles. Australian Alan Jones in 1980, who was the first to win a driver's title in a Williams, and he was followed by Finland's Rosberg in 1982. Brazilian Nilson Piquet took his 3rd title with the team in 1987. Britain's Nigel Mansell celebrated his one and only title in 1992, before Frenchman Alain Prost chalked up his 4th of his career in 1993. Damon Hill, who led the team after the death of triple champion Ayrton Senna in a Williams at Imola in 1994, won the title in 1996, before Villeneuve completed the list. Williams entered the sport in 1969, providing a Brabham for compatriot Pierre's Courage to race, and set up Williams Grand Prix Engineering in 1997, with co-founder Patrick Head. In 1992, with a highly innovative car designed by Andrew Newey, Williams won 10 of 16 races. In 1996, they won 12 of 16. Tiger Woods does not know when he will return to the PGA Tour, following a February car accident that left him in a wheelchair for 2 months, but said on Tuesday he would love to compete in the British Open next July at St Andrews.
Woods, who was close to having his leg amputated after he lost control of his car in Los Angeles earlier this year, told reporters he was lucky to be alive. The 45-year-old admitted that both his leg and back hurt just sitting at the new conference, but he did not rule out being in the field at the old course at St Andrews in Scotland, where he won 2 of his 15 career major titles.
As far as playing at the tour level, I don't know when that's going to happen. Now, I'll play a round here and there, a little hit and giggle. I can do something like that. I sort of like playing from, the USGA suggests, play forward. I really like that idea now. I don't like the tees on back, so I like play it forward. Come on, let's move it up. Let's move it up. To see some of my shots fall out of the sky a lot shorter than they used to is a little eye-opening. But at least I'm able to do it again. That's something that for a while there, it didn't look like I was going to. I'm able to participate in the sport of golf. Now, to what level, I do not know that. And, I'll keep you abreast of all of you guys abreast as progress continues to go on, whether or not I'll be out here and at what level and when.
Woods, who recently posted a video on social media showing him hitting an iron shot, acknowledged he has a long way to go in the rehab process, but said he enjoyed the challenge. Fans and supporters who are still hopeful Woods can win again have pointed out that his most recent major title at the 2019 Masters follows several surgeries to his back and knee and personal problems that convinced many his career was over. But on Tuesday, Woods accepted that the clock is ticking on his storied career and said he has no desire to resume a full playing schedule.
Siem Reap Tourism Club Association has announced that it will organise the Siem Reap Golf Club for 2021 next week. It was confirmed by the association's president, Philip Keogh, saying they will be held on Thursday and Friday, the 10th to 11th of December. According to him, the event is expected to attract the participation of the private sector, especially wealthy investors and companies. Siem Reap Tourism Club Association, Philip Keogh, has said that the Minister of National Defence, Tia Ban, who is also the president of the Golf Association, will preside over the competition. He has added that the Siem Reap Golf Club 2021 aims to build trust as well as to attract more local and foreign tourists to the province, with Cambodia already fully reopened to welcome fully vaccinated tourists. The Women's Tennis Association has announced on Wednesday that it has decided to suspend tournaments in China due to concerns over the safety of former doubles world number one Peng Shuai. WTA Chief Executive Steve Simon has said that he cannot ask athletes to compete there when Peng Shuai is not allowed to communicate freely. Also, the tournament is very much based on equal rights.
According to the chief executive of the Women's Tennis Association, Steve Simon, Peng Shuai has seemingly been pressured to contradict her allegation of sexual assault. He is greatly concerned about the risks that all of their players and staff could face if they were to hold events in China next year. The whereabouts of Peng became a matter of international concern for nearly 3 weeks after she posted a message on social media alleging that China's former Vice Premier Zhang Gaoli had sexually assaulted her. On 29 November, IOC President Thomas Bach had a 30-minute video call with Peng, a 3-time Olympian whose supporter says may be under political duress, during which she told him she was safe and with family and friends. But Simon, who said the decision to suspend tournaments in China had the full support of the WTA Board of Directors, is not convinced at all is well with Peng. Simon has added that while they know where Peng is, he has serious doubt that she is free, safe, and not subject to censorship, coercion, and intimidation. He says that the WTA has been clear on what is needed, and they repeat their call for full and transparent investigation, without censorship, into Peng Shuai's sexual assault accusation.
The Cambodian national football team has already left the country on Thursday to compete at the AFF Suzuki Cup 2020 in Singapore. The competition will be held from Sunday, the 5th of December until the 1st of January. Assistant coach of the Cambodian national football team, Pia Sopek Tra, says the Cambodian team had trained hard and will get more warmed up, led by their general manager, Kasuki Honda, before the matches start. The 10 football teams of the AFF Suzuki Cup 2020 have 2 poles. Pole A includes Singapore, Thailand, Myanmar, the Philippines, Timor-Leste, and the Pole B consists of Cambodia, Malaysia, Indonesia, Laos, and Vietnam. Cambodia have 4 matches versus Malaysia on the 6th of December, Indonesia on the 9th of December, Laos on the 15th, and Vietnam on the 19th. Skating officials have announced that one of the key figure skating events leading into the Winter Olympics, the Grand Prix final, has been cancelled. after Japan closed its borders to non-Japanese visitors earlier this week. The news disappoints the Japanese skating fans, but at the same time, they support the decision due to the emergence of the new COVID-19 Omicron variant.
The Grand Prix final, which was scheduled for the western city of Osaka from 9 to 12 December, has long been seen as a key step on the road to the Winter Olympics, which will run from 4 to 20 February in Beijing next year.
I wanted to see Uno skate, so it's a lonesome feeling.
I think it's very safe to hold the competition in Japan if people didn't have to travel. But there's a risk because people need to cross the border, so it's no surprise that it got cancelled.
Though disappointed not to be able to see world-class figure skaters in Japan, many figure skating fans at the Tokyo Ice Rink were supportive of the decision to cancel the event.
It's not just athletes. There will be various staff that will be traveling from overseas, so there are fear we can't strong off. So I think it was a wise decision that they canceled it, but I'm very disappointed.
Japan on Monday took some of the strictest steps globally by closing its borders to new foreigner entrants for about a month in light of the emergency of the new coronavirus variant, Omicron.
Crowds returned to New York City's Midtown Manhattan on Wednesday for the 89th annual lighting of the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree, officially kicking off the holiday season in the usual fashion. This year's event was open to the general public, in contrast to last year's gathering that saw strict COVID-19 restrictions as virus infection cases soared.
The 2-hour ceremony was broadcasted live with a slew of star-studded performances, some virtual, including Carrie Underwood, whose pre-recorded performance of her song Let There Be Peace was broadcast from Nashville. Brad Paisley covering Buck Owens' 1965 country classic Santa Looked a Lot Like Daddy. Jose Feliciano teaming up with Latin-American boy band CNCO for a memorable performance of his timeless song Feliz Navidad, among others. The night's highlight came with more than 50,000 multicolored LED lights and a 900-pound star with at least 70 spikes covered in 3 million crystals were switched on, bringing the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree to life. New York's outgoing Mayor Bill de Blasio and Tishman Speyer CEO Rob Speyer, whose company owns the Rockefeller Center, were on hand to light a 12-ton, 79-foot-tall Norway spruce that was donated by the Price family from Elkton, Maryland. This year's tree will be on display through early January 2022.
Now let's have a look at the weather and see what you can expect for the next few days. Thanks for watching the weekly roundup here on the EAC News Channel. More from the EAC News team in the daily roundup Monday night, 8 p.m. I'll see you then.